Panel House at large. This House believes that the IGG has failed in its role to fight corruption in Uganda. Speaker, we're going through cross-examination. When I ask you a question, I expect you to give me a yes or no. Any irrelevant information that you give after that, I'm going to consider that question unanswered. First question, do you opine that the IGG has failed in its role to fight corruption in Uganda?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
So in so saying that you're of the view that it is of no importance to the country?
It's of importance, but it
I
has
said
failed.
a yes or no. Is it of no importance to the country?
That's why we represent.
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Fine. That's an unanswered question. Do you agree that the IGG should be stopped completely in the country? A yes or a no? Thank you very much. Does a frog drink up the pond in which it lives?
We didn't talk about
a yes or a no?
We didn't
Thank you.
talk
That
about
question is not answered since you don't want to give its answer. Do you
drinking.
believe that it is reasonable to manage something before eradicating it?
That's why we set up the State House
Panel,
Anti-Corruption Unit.
we see in this debate that the farmers fail to understand the context of this motion. The motion clearly says that the IGG has failed in this role to fight corruption, not eradicate it. We are saying, is it fighting corruption? We are not saying, is it eradicating it? So we are saying that in this, the IGG has done its role of fighting corruption. We are not talking about eradication of corruption. As far as us, the team negators, know, in the countries that we have been doing our research on, there is no country that is 100% free of corruption. So we are not talking about eradication of corruption. We are talking about the fight against corruption, which the IGG has done to its full account. The team farmers come here and they talk about how corruption has increased in Uganda. Yes, we know that there is high rate of corruption in the country, but we are seeing those years back before the IGG was there. We are seeing, is there a reduced rate of corruption or is there an increased rate of corruption? Yet it is high, but it has decreased, which shows that the IGG is doing its proper role in the fight against corruption, which the team farmers fail to acknowledge in this debate. They are talking about eradication of corruption. Let's take them at the best that yes, the IGG has at some extent failed to fight corruption. Which policy are they giving us to eradicate corruption completely? Because you're saying the IGG is at least reducing the rate of corruption. So if they're saying that it's not doing any work, which policy are they giving us which is going to eradicate this corruption that they're talking about in the nation? Panel, we are saying that a frog does not drink the water in which it lives in. We are seeing that there's corruption in Uganda, but the IGG is helping to dilute this corruption, which is helping us to live a considerable life. We are living in government schools where we are provided everything. We are having proper healthcare, proper roads, proper everything. What else do you want? We are saying that even if there is corruption, we are managing the fight against corruption, which the IGG is doing at its best. But team farmers fail to acknowledge this. They fail to acknowledge that the IGG is doing its role, and we're seeing the development in the country due to the IGG's role in the management of corruption. The IGG is the only body which is helping in curbing the corruption rate. We are seeing that IGG is organizing campaigns, it is talking to the youth, it is arresting people and convicting them in the courts of law. While the team pharmacists fail to notice all of this, after our team gives them all the statistics, the status quo, and all the reasons why we think that the IGG is doing its proper role in the fight against corruption. The team farmers don't walk out winners of this debate today because they have failed to understand the context of the debate. They come here debating about how the IGG has not eradicated corruption, while we are talking about how the IGG has fought corruption. In this research, we have presented you with the ways the IGG has fought corruption, and we are going to eradicate it with time. Thank you.
Resolved. This House believes that the IGG has failed in its role to fight corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Okalebo Joe Caesar from Team Affirmative. Do you know the Article 17, Section 1, Subsection 1 of the Uganda National Constitution?
No, please inform me.
Yes, you don't know? Do you realize that the IGG has basically been addressing embezzlement but not other forms of corruption, for example, nepotism, bribery, and cronyism? I
realize that the IGG is helping in the fight of corruption.
Going against your options that you gave me, that's a no, I take a no. Do you know that 60% of the cases handled by the IGG don't result into conviction?
We know that they're convicted and they're acted upon.
Do you know that the IGG fails to produce vivid evidence over 70% of their cases and they end up thrown out by the court?
No, because according to the statistics we just gave, the IGG has fought corruption.
Do you agree with the resolution tonight?
No.
Thank you. Do you consent to the fact that corruption has been persistent over years?
We consent to the fact that corruption has reduced.
Is there any difference between someone with 0% and 29%?
There is a huge difference.
Thank you. They both get F9. Do you know that corruption was Do you know that corruption was at its peak between 2015 and 2017 after 30 years of the existence of IGG?
We acknowledge that the IG has
Thank
reduced
you.
the rate
Don't know.
of corruption.
Is 487 over 3,952 cases. A high conviction rate.
Yeah.
Thank you. That does not even make 50% of the cases that they fail against people. Do you have any examples of leaders who have been convicted for abuse of the leadership conduct?
We have a lot of examples which we just gave.
cite one.
We gave you an example of the
You
minister
don't
who was
know.
convicted.
Ladies and gentlemen, that clearly states that they are bending on fallacies and their own opinions, ladies and gentlemen. We come here and we are not debating, actually, giving an option of the IGG, but we are evaluating its failure, ladies and gentlemen. She said, I asked, does she know of Article 17, Section 1, Subsection 1 of the Uganda National Constitution? She said no. But it says that the duty of each and every Ugandan citizen to combat corruption, misuse, or abuse of any public property. Ladies and gentlemen, Ugandans have done that. We've whistleblowed, we've reported many cases of corruption, and guess what? The IGG has not been successful. Ladies and gentlemen, I also went ahead to ask whether she realizes that the IGG is basically addressing embezzlement, and she said no. Ladies and gentlemen, it's clear. They recovered embezzled funds. They didn't actually probe into nepotism. They didn't probe into cronyism, ladies and gentlemen. They have never probed into bribery, ladies and gentlemen. What does this show? It is failing out. It's just fighting. A mere branch of corruption, ladies and gentlemen. I also asked her if 60% of the cases handled by the IGG result into conviction, and she said yes, which means she acknowledged it. And then I asked whether she knows that they failed to produce vivid evidence. She said no. But ladies and gentlemen, clearly, 2 cases, the pension scam of 2015 was thrown out by the anti-corruption court after 3 years of no evidence provided by the IGG. Ladies and gentlemen, that clearly spots a failure and a weakness in the IGG, ladies and gentlemen. They came here and told us that it's not good to bite a hand that feeds you. But what is the IGG feeding us? It's nothing, ladies and gentlemen. They talked of 30 billion recovered, but we lose 20 trillion to corruption, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that 1,000 billion make up 1 trillion. This is not even 0.025% of what we lose. Meaning they are totally failing out, ladies and gentlemen. But we came here and clearly told them that we have low conviction rates by the IGG. They didn't account for it. We told them that they provide shortage of credible evidence. They don't provide any credible evidence that is worth convicting all their files into the case that they convict. We talked of political interference. They didn't address it. We talked of failure to investigate high-profile cases. They didn't address it. That clearly shows that they have lost out in today's debate. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the debate. It was really a good debate. It was a mature point of argument. Now, what was today's point of contention? Today's point of contention was looking at the fight, like the role of the office of the Inspectorate of Government in the fighting of corruption. Fighting. You get the point? Fighting. That's for the resolution. Fighting, not eliminating. I really appreciate the first affirmative. You really came and you set a very, very, very good case. You set the ball rolling for the team. And also want to appreciate the first negator. You also came and set a good role. But now, in the middle of the debate, we now had a point of contention that was now resolved down to efficiency. Efficiency. Yes, team affirmative came and actually said, yes, they have failed, they are doing this and this. But then team negative came and actually like, now, let us look at where we started from and where we are right now. Now, personally, where I will kind of credit team negative asked a question. Actually, it was made clear. Now, let me tell you, in a debate, when you are saying something has failed, now try to come and give us an alternative for the thing that has failed. They asked you, which alternative do you have for the Inspectorate of Government? You just highlighted about the State Anti-Corruption Unit as a by the way that the government set it up because of the failure of the Inspectorate of Government, but you never gave it to us as an alternative. Yes, if the Inspectorate has failed, now, which alternative do we have? If team affirmative, you would have come, by virtue that they simplified it for you, by even guiding you what you are meant to do. If team affirmative, you would have come and then you gave us a proper alternative. Trust me, you had to win this debate. But personally, I'll give a win to team negative. Thank you.
Personally, I think both teams actually put up an excellent debate. But I would want to respectfully vary from my colleague. First and foremost, much as both teams were actually really good in terms of strategy and the content, I feel both teams left certain questions unanswered. Now, Team Negative actually did a good job in actually showing us that even the statistics that Team Affirmative is using, the 400 and something cases that were convicted, are actually evidence that the IGG is doing something. Are we together? Because I felt Team Affirmative had an issue with the word conviction. Now, what does it mean for someone to be convicted? You are convicted when you are proven to actually be guilty of something. Not everyone that is presented to the IGG as a suspect of indulging in corruption is actually proven guilty. I expected Team Affirmative, if you're going to use conviction rates as a question, show us that the IGG has failed to produce enough evidence or to follow these cases up deep enough to actually be able to convict those who are guilty. Are we together? Not everyone that is fronted to the IGG is guilty of corruption. However, and before I actually go to where I decided this debate, Team Negative went ahead to raise a good question of what alternative are you offering? Dear, I want both parties to note that you do not come to just negate and not give an alternative. Fine, you're saying this has failed. So what should we do? Are we together? You have got to have an alternative. Now, the biggest failure of Team Negative was this. Team Affirmative managed to show you a trail of numbers that actually show the problem of corruption in Uganda is getting worse and worse and worse. So much that the government in latter days is having to set up other units to try and fight the problem of corruption. Are we together? There will be no need for a state house anti-corruption unit if IGG was playing its role 100% well. Are we together? So when they show you a trail of numbers that are actually showing that corruption is increasing, they are showing you rates, you're showing us that the IGG has recovered a certain amount of money, which is good. But when we contrast that with the amount of money being lost as a result of corruption, the two do not actually tally. Are we together? You can clearly see that the problem of corruption is aggravating. So I was really interested in what Team Negative had to say about that. Because since the establishment of the IGG, I would expect, much as corruption could still exist, the numbers should be dropping. Are we together? If you're fighting something and it is instead increasing, it means you're actually not winning that fight. Are we together? It is on that I actually varied in my awarding of marks. Other than that, I had no problem with the style for both teams. I gave you 18 each, 30 each for content, and I varied in strategy, giving Team Affirmative 27 and Team Negative 25, giving a total of 75 to Team Affirmative and 73 to Team Negative. Thank you.
Now, first and foremost, I want to thank the team. It was a good show. I've loved the submission from both speakers. To me, if I'm to award marks on style, all of you has 20. From the first speaker to the last, all of you have 20 marks from me in terms of styles. Now, where I faulted you, it was in your strategy. Should you one day be given a policy debate and you have no alternative, we are saying this microphone is bad, give me an alternative, what am I using next? And that is the question the fourth speaker came and asked you, the third speaker came and asked you, Team Affirmative. As far as you have given us, yes, the IGG has failed, we accept. What is the alternative? Your second speaker came and mentioned about the action aid, which was a very good point. If at all he could put a nail on it and continue with that systematic kind, the action aid, it was a plan, which you just advised it and left it hanging like that. as my first judges have spoke, that you know what, you left many questions unanswered. Team negative, they asked you, what is the political interference? You never gave an answer in terms of political interference, completely. So both of you have been leaving some question unanswered, which this debate wanted those questions to be answered for us to decide who should take the side and at the end of the day. So the political difference question, you could have given them an alternative, tell them, this is what we have done and this is what we are yet to do. The mere fact of having 20 trillion going off complete in terms of corruption and only 38, was it 38 or 30 billion being recovered, it's a question to the team negative to ask now, what do we do? We are losing 20 trillion. This is money meant maybe for the poor. Iron sheets maybe meant for Karamoja people. Things made for people who are in need. We cannot leave unanswered questions like that. You could come and give me a question, will be like, yes, how much we are having the 30 billion? But with the time, which the fourth speaker did, he came and said, you know what, give us time, our time effect. Give us time, by the time we shall have those money recovered. Now, to me, you guys have performed very well, and I've even failed to add marks, but I failed completely to be adduced to the team affirmative in the alternative issue. That's why I had to sideline with the negators in the alternative aspect. What is the alternative? So it's a 2-win against 1. That means it's not a unanimous judgment, it's a 2-1. The team negative have the day. Thank you so much. May God bless you.